Hi, my name is Annie, and I've been an explainer at the New York Hall of Science for a little over a year now. And as an explainer, I'm part of a program called the Science Career Ladder, which provides students the chance to develop professional skills in the STEM field through hands-on experiences and through interactions with people from all different professional backgrounds. So today I'll be interviewing Dr. Stacy Hobson to learn more about her career in STEM. So hi, Stacy.
Hi,
Thanks so much
Annie.
for joining us.
Oh, no worries.
So,
Very nice meeting you.
could you tell me a little bit about yourself, your job, and what you do?
Sure. I am a research scientist at IBM Research. I'm based in New York, in Yorktown Heights. I've been with IBM Research for a little over 12 years. And my background, I have a bachelor's and master's in computer science and a PhD in neuroscience and cognitive science.
Okay, wow, that sounds wonderful. What exactly is the research field?
So research is all about tackling very hard problems. Within IBM Research, we have a lot of different areas that we focus on, from artificial intelligence research to cloud computing, quantum computing, research around our very, very big servers or what we call systems research. Also impact science, looking at areas of like the future of climate and issues related to climate, issues related to work and health as well. So a very diverse set of topics that we focus on, and people from very diverse backgrounds. So people with backgrounds in computer science, mathematics, psychology, material science, and so on. So a very diverse set of people focused on a lot of different challenges across a lot of different fields.
Okay, it sounds like
really
definitely. Yeah, it sounds like there's definitely a lot of different research areas at IBM. So what kind of research do you specifically do?
So I'm in the artificial intelligence group, and my specific focus is around trustworthy AI. So when we think about artificial intelligence and how it's being used in so many different areas, and let me give a concrete or very simple example. When you think about like Netflix, do you use Netflix? Do you watch movies on Netflix?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes Netflix will recommend new movies or new content or new shows based off of what you've watched previously. So there's this analysis of your viewing habits, the types of content that you like to watch, and it comes up with recommendations for new or different movies or content or shows for you to consider based off of your previous preferences. So artificial intelligence is actually around in a lot of different places. And my focus is really ensuring that AI is trustworthy. So when we think about aspects of like bias, we really want AI to be fair and to not perpetuate biases that people may have. AI itself is at times a black box. People may not understand how an AI system is created or designed. So there's this aspect of explainability so that regular people can understand details about the AI model or algorithm that was created. Then there's other areas such as like transparency. If you're going to use an AI algorithm, let's say in a financial services or a healthcare setting, the people who are using it should have information about that system or that model to know what it's doing, how it's coming up with the recommendations or the outcomes, so that you can better understand if it's being used the right way and if it's designed in a way that would be helpful for the outcomes that you're using it for. There's other areas as well, like things around security and privacy and all of that. So my focus and goal is really making sure that the AI that we create is trustworthy.
Wow, okay. I think AI is just fascinating in general. And it's so cool that you're helping to develop its potential. So I'm just wondering, why exactly did you choose this field?
I've actually focused on a lot of different areas in my research career. And in IBM Research, we have this saying that the world is our lab. So we try to identify problems or areas in the world where technology and our efforts can make a difference. And personally, I really wanted to look at how can we use technology in ways that help people or address challenges or issues that people have. So I mentioned my work around trustworthy AI, which is my most recent kind of area of focus. But previously, I also looked at things like crisis management, how we can use technology and solutions to help people with various crises. That was around the time that we had Hurricane Sandy, and I worked with a lot of governments in helping them understand how to mobilize people very quickly, how we could create a cloud computing platform so that people got access to data specifically to help with the crisis when they needed it. But once the crisis was over or when they did not need access to the data, that access could be removed very easily. I also did work around risk for financial services organizations. So there was a period where people were doing trading or they were doing financial services activities. And there were some issues a few years ago. So we were looking at how can technology help in assessing risk in specific trades, or how can technology help with risk assessment at a broad or very global scale for a financial services institution. And more recently, I'm also beginning to look at issues of social and racial equity. So how can technology help address some of the issues that we're seeing with the disparities across racial groups and social groups? So that's a more recent effort of mine.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. And it seems like you've done so many projects throughout the past few years. So out of the many projects that you've done, which one was your favorite and why?
That's a hard question. I'm really beginning to like the work that I'm doing in AI because there's so much to learn, and the potential of AI is just vast. There's so much opportunity in the application of AI in various spaces. We think about the use of AI in like healthcare settings or financial services settings, or just like entertainment, like going back to the Netflix example, recommendations for content and shows and movies to watch. So there's such a huge potential around AI, and I really like identifying ways that we can make sure that people are comfortable with AI models and algorithms, or not necessarily comfortable, but that they build trust and understand aspects of the AI so that we feel okay in using it.
Yeah, I totally understand. Now, when thinking of all these different projects and just sort of bringing them to life, what does your thinking process look like?
So I do a lot of collaborative work. I'm a part of a team, and we do a lot of brainstorming sessions. For example, we say, here's a problem, or here's something that I want to work on. What do you think? What if I try to tackle the problem in this way? Or can we use technology to solve it in this way? And someone may say, okay, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or that's a good idea, but let's build upon it by trying this. So it's a very collaborative process and a lot of brainstorming, and also to some extent trial and error. We'll try things, see how it works, what happens, and then we may say, okay, that didn't have the exact result that we are expecting, so let's try something different. So you know, we start off with like a hypothesis, like, you know, we think that if we do this or create this technology or have this solution, it could help with this. And then we test out that hypothesis. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that entire learning process is very exciting, and it's great to have such a strong and great team that I work with, a team of really smart people that I work with.
Okay, so from my personal experience, I know that research is usually done in person and in a lab. So what did your work look like before the pandemic, and how has that changed?
So it actually depends. Sometimes when you think about research, people often think about people with like the lab coats and the goggles and like sometimes the petri dishes and the gloves and so on. So when you think about it from that aspect, yes, a lot of that is probably in person where someone's working in a physical lab. The work that I do is often done just via my laptop. So I have the potential of working almost anywhere. I would go into the office, pretty much every day of the week. And after COVID-19 and the pandemic, we all transitioned to a work from home setting. And that's been very different. So I've been home for the past 5 months. I have a 3-year-old running around. You might hear her in the background as well. So it's been a bit of a balance in, doing the work at home all the time and also having my daughter. But one of the things that I miss is just seeing people in the hallways and striking up a conversation. And for me, some of the greatest experiences I've had in coming up with a new patent or a new invention has just completely been around having coffee with someone in the cafeteria or just taking a break or having lunch with someone. So from an invention perspective, it's been a bit more challenging being at home. But we do things like WebEx or Zoom, video conferencing. We have calls and we try to connect however we can. We also do virtual coffee hours or tea times and really try to figure out how do we engage people knowing that we're not at a physical site. An interesting aspect of IBM Research is that we have 19 locations around the world. So being at home has been useful in connecting more with some of our colleagues in other labs, so other locations, because you can't really work with them in person or on site because they're located somewhere else. So I think from that aspect, it's been beneficial. But I do miss just kind of having lunch with someone or running into people in the hallways.
Yeah, I totally empathize with that.
Yeah.
So going back to before when you were talking about your work in like racial diversity and IBM's very diverse workplace, why do you think it's important to have diversity in STEM?
So it's definitely important to have diversity in STEM. When you think about technology and solutions that people will use or that will impact people's lives, if you don't have diversity in the people who are creating those technologies or creating those solutions, there's a chance that they could be created in a way that does not reflect certain people or certain communities. We've seen examples of that when it comes to like bias in AI, or examples where people have created solutions or technologies thinking that they represent a broad group of people or address issues across a broad group of people. But there are certain communities or people that it has, I wouldn't necessarily say a negative impact on, but it does not have the intended impact of the designers or developers or creators. And when you don't have a diverse team and you don't have voices that can say, hey, how is this affecting the people in my community or the people, of my, background or gender or experiences or so on, then those points can be overlooked. And technology would not have the intended effect of addressing the needs of a much broader set of people. So that's an area that I'm very passionate about, just really ensuring that technology meets the needs of as many people as possible.
Yeah, okay. I definitely understand that whole, like, you have to sort of know the person to understand what you want to do for them. And I really love your response to
that. Thank you.
What advice would you give to someone trying to break into the research industry or just the general STEM field?
Think about your passion and what you like doing. I would definitely say don't be discouraged by any external factors or external voices. I think there were periods as I grew up where people told me, okay, you cannot focus on computer science, or why would you go into that field? You should be a teacher, or you should be an administrator or a secretary or something different. And I asked myself, why? Why can't I be a computer scientist? Why can't I create technology and do fun things, the things that I find fun? I loved math, I loved science. So I want to build a life and a career around the things that I love. And I'm glad that I didn't listen to those negative voices and the people that tried to tell me not to do this. So the advice I would give is listen to your own voice. Identify the things that you're passionate about. I wanted to use technology to solve problems that people had. So I made that decision and commitment back in middle or high school, and I stuck with that throughout my life. So really trust your own instincts and your own interests.
All right, thank you so much. That's all the questions that I have for today. Thank you so much for interviewing with me.